Okay, so next, let's look at how we can enter those positions when my partner's on both knees. And for those of you who watched my butterfly DVD, we had a conversation in the beginning about ranges, right? So when my partner's on the knees over here, a lot of times they're not looking to engage with the legs like they were standing. That's why we worked so much on the leg control when my partner was standing. They're looking to engage more with the hands fight. And we have different ranges here. So that my idea in this position is like the hands would be like a far range and how we get control of the hands, whether it could be like a 2-on-1. And remember, that can come from a bunch of different grips, right? Another range that we can look at is more like a middle range where like I'm kind of controlling more like his elbows, like double elbows or even collar elbow. And then a deeper range that we can look at is when I'm on the underhooks or on the underhook and the overhook. And from all those ranges of the upper body, we can take advantage and try to get to the X guard and to the one leg X guard position. I feel like the deepest range is going to be the easiest to use. So what I mean by that is if, somehow we can use a simple entry. Again, if you want to look at some other entries, my butterfly guard DVD has them. We can use a simple entry to get to the double underhook position over here. And this one is going to be my favorite one to use because my hip is closer to his hip. So that means I have more leverage, more momentum to start to pick him up out of the ground. So when I throw my back on the ground, start to do the hook lift, I can pick him up very high. And versus like if I was on the 2-on-1 to do the hook lift, or even like both his wrists, hypothetically, against a bigger guy, it's going to be harder. He's going to feel like a little bit heavier because I don't have his upper body, his weight so much over me, right? The other ranges are still great though. Like I can still try, to try to lift him with the hook lift from the 2-on-1 or the collar elbow. So very good range to lift with, or even the double elbow, still very good range to lift with, right? And so what I'm doing there, whenever I do a hook lift, is I'm scooping myself closer. Okay, we always want to take advantage of the two directions. I scoop closer as I pull him on top. So my butt kind of scoops in as I pull him on top. I don't just want to just bring my butt in. Now he's on my toes, but the weight's still back. I want to pull in and pull him. You see how I get the weight out of his heels over there? And then I use the momentum to, as I go to a pull, I almost change to a push once he passes my chest line. So what I mean is if I was on the double elbows, as I do that, once I get to about here, look, I push him above my head. So I change almost like you do in like a snatch or something like that. It starts with a pull and then it changes almost to a push. Same thing when you do a hook lift. It starts with a pull and then it's going to change to a push, right? So that's what I'm looking whenever I do any hook lift. And like I said, we can do the hook lift from any range, but obviously there's going to be easier ranges to do it in. So can you come on this side, please? But no matter which range I choose, the concept's going to remain the same. So for now, we'll just start with a double under one, please. So come a little closer. Good. So when I'm here in this situation, I'm going to go into that hook lift, okay? And just stay floating, okay? I'm going to go into that hook lift. And once I hook lift over here, I'm going to work, once I get to the push, to pivot. So my goal is to get to one leg, right? So I'm going to pivot myself out from underneath, bring my other hand to his ribs. This way I'm off center from him and now he can't face me. And now from here, I'm going to start to go underneath. Either I can pull the back of the knee as I kick with my other hook, making him do that split like we did in the shin to shin entry. And I go to the one leg X guard. Or once I pivot over here, if I see the opportunity, I can go underneath. And same thing, I make him do that split. I kick with that hook. And I'm going to go to the X guard position like so over here, okay? Let's do it again, please. So even from something like collar elbow even, I can do the position, change, and go underneath. And guys, let's take advantage of this timing. Can you rotate, Kevin? Can you posture up, please? to talk about the X guard position. So when I'm here, I always want to control the knee. The one foot's gonna go up by the hook. My one hook's gonna go up by the hip, and my other hook is gonna go against the knee. One knee's in front of him, one knee's behind him. My head is tight, and I'm controlling this knee line over here. How I control this knee line, okay, is I need to make sure that both hands are focused on this for now. This hand can eventually work through other stuff. We'll talk about that later. And I'm rotating his knee so he can't drop his knee on my chest. I don't want his knee to drop down. Can he drop down? Yes. So I rotate his knee, I drop my elbow down. And also I'm making sure that my hips are underneath him. And we'll talk more about this when we get to the retention part of the DVD, but this is a good starting position, okay? So one more. This side now, Kevin. We can get straight to the X guard position. Last one. And we can get straight to the one leg X guard position. Guys, what's usually going to determine whether I get to the one leg X guard or X guard is like how tight usually my partner is like reacting to close his knees. Just think about it in general. When I'm in X guard, I'm further underneath him. So that means I need more space to get underneath. Versus when I'm in one leg X guard, it's just like almost my legs are underneath him. So I need less space. So if your partner, when you go to lift, is keeping those knees tight, that knee pinched, I still want to give the intention to stretch my hooks wide. And this time I'm going to choose the one leg X guard. So my leg slides straight. The other one stays bent. I'm kicking with this one as this one makes a slide. And I push him to get the weight out of this leg. We can go to the one leg X guard. So that's generally going to be why I choose one over the other, and a good way to deal with that. Okay, next we're going to deal with the opponent who has one knee up. And one thing that we can kind of envision when my opponent has the one knee up is he's not quite standing, but he's not quite on both knees, right? He's not quite kneeling. So when that happens, we can almost use both entries, or at least take the concepts from both of the entries into play. So just as a quick demo, imagine my partner has the knee like this, but his hip is more like up. Like, can you put this foot flat on the ground? Your hip's more up. Yeah, exactly. So I see the space over here to get to the knee hug. So if I can hands fight here, and now I see the space to get to the knee hug position, this is a great option to start to go through all those series from here. If I see the opportunity to spin and go to the one leg X, that's a good option. And when we're there, hugging the knee too, or rather when we're there, sometimes my opponent, he can still step in the center while on one knee, and we're in that knee hug position. If he goes to drive me back down, right, I can put that hook underneath, kind of off position him, and then do that same knee lift from the leg hug and get right back in the position. Also, when I'm here, I can still attack like the same idea on the ankle pick, except maybe this time I can even go to his head, and then maybe he keeps his balance with his hand. I don't feel right coming up over here. Okay, so I can control the knee line so he doesn't free himself and kick away, and we can come right back in the situation, right? So that's just an example of, even though my partner is kneeling, I can still find the same standing entries opportunity, right? One thing that sometimes changes though is if my partner's not giving the leg hug position, like he's kind of like tight, like how Kevin was in the beginning, right? Then I'm gonna probably change to more like almost like a hook lift style entry, right? So one way I can do that is same thing. I can start with the initial control in the situation, and I'm gonna start to go towards like a hook lift. But if my partner keeps his balance over here, I like to put my both hooks behind. And if you notice, I kind of pivoted myself perpendicular to this knee. So again, the control doesn't necessarily matter. It can even be on the wrist in this situation, and I kind of pivot myself perpendicular to this knee so I get my both hooks behind. So now with my both hooks behind, it's kind of hard for him to kick up. I can straighten this one. As I stretch this one wide, my hands go and get it. And then I can arrive to the situation. I can even, from this situation too, sometimes I don't even need to focus to bring myself perpendicular because maybe my partner's kneeled, but more with his hip open. Sometimes they kneel like this, like kind of more like almost in like an open stance. So now I don't have to worry about that perpendicular angle because I see the angle for my feet to go straight there, right? So that will be another time where I can start to get the clinch control, work the hook lift, but this time addressing both my hooks to the one leg, and then I kick. And look, if the leg's coming to me high enough, I can go straight to the underhook, straight to the knee, and we can end in this one leg X or kind of X guard, like in between position, where I have the leg on top of my shoulder, I have that same connection, knee to heel, and working from this situation over here, right? So hopefully that highlights some options for you guys on how you can combine the concepts of when the opponent's kneel on both knees and when the opponent's standing, and how you can apply those concepts when the partner's like this or like this or like this with his one knee on the mat. Okay, next I want to go over a concept with you guys where I basically win a dominant hands fight position, or I have a very good sweep attempt on my partner. And what that's going to do sometimes, it's going to force a drastic reaction from him where he's going to have to post up, or he's going to attempt to like stand up to either run away or make some space. And that's always going to give me the opportunity to start to slide myself underneath him for one of these positions, or pivot myself underneath him for one of these positions. And so it's just a concept that we just have to be aware about. And I just want to go over a couple of quick examples of this concept. So the most basic one that I can think of, the most common one that I can think of, again, like if you guys saw my butterfly DVD, a lot of times, you know, we're going to win this upper body position in the over under. And because I won the hip positioning in this position, I'm going to have the chance to sweep him very easily towards the side over here, okay? And when I go to sweep him, though, a lot of times, since I won the upper body, he's not able to defend with the upper body. He's going to defend with the lower body by making a post. And if he posts close to my head, okay, it's hard for me to go to that push out that we worked in the butterfly DVD. So one thing I like to do is treat this like a hook lift. So my hand that was the underhook pummels underneath to the ribs over here, and my other hand is going to reach right on his knee. You can actually keep the hand underneath. So when I'm here, this hand only becomes a problem if I don't deal with this hand on the ribs. The reason why is a lot of times what happens over here is because the guy has the underhook on me, people think like he can start to close the distance and then sprawl his leg back. So he goes chest to chest, closes the distance with his arm, get your elbow to the mat. Elbow. Yes, and now sprawls his leg back. Can you do it? This leg, this leg. There you go. Yeah, so stronger, hip to the ground. Hip to the ground. There you go. Now that kills my position, right? So can you come back? So when I'm here in this position and we have the cup on the leg, this hand on the rib is going to defend the underhook. So as I use my foot on the ground to pivot my hip the other way, I stretch my hook to the right of the butterfly hook. Look at my hand. If my hand extends, so does his. You see that? And his hand comes out. So that's the idea. If my hand extends, his underhook's no longer there. So I extend my hand, pivot everything towards that side, work that concept of getting the weight opposite in the opposite leg. And then from here, my top hook can come in super easy, or we can even go more to like the one leg X guard on the underhook side of the leg, whichever one you guys are looking for in that situation. So let's come back. So I'll do that one quick, okay? So when I'm here, I already won the clinch position. I start to shoot myself underneath, just like we did in the butterfly DVD. And now he has the underhook, no problem. I still have the position underneath his hips. I just need to extend that arm and pivot myself underneath, working like almost like a front hip escape off of this leg, kicking him to the side, and we can go to the one leg X guard or this position over here. Let's come back in. So along these lines, I don't always have to force a post from him of the leg. Sometimes he's gonna post voluntarily. And why would he do that? Well, because maybe I won like a good clinch position, or maybe I made a good threat on him. So what I mean is, a lot of times, again, in the butterfly DVD, we work from this head and arm position. And a lot of times when we get here, what people start to do is they feel very uncomfortable here. So they start to almost pop up on their legs, and they almost kind of want to shake out of the position, try to back out of the position. Can you back out and shake your arm out? Yeah, something like this, in hopes that they slip out. But when he does that attempted escape, he exposes his legs for one of the positions that we're working in this instructional. So when I'm here in this position and my partner starts to hop up on the legs over here, right? See how his legs are up? My hooks are in the inside position already. This is a great time to start to apply the hook lift. So my hands are gonna switch. I'm gonna bring my hands to his armpit. I kick him towards this way. I stretch his legs out, and I slide myself right into the position, right? Or, can you come back to that clinch, please? So I'm here in this position. Same thing, I start to lift. I see the opportunity to go straight underneath. We can arrive here, or we can arrive in the full X slow. So that's an example of making a dominant clinch and him having to respect the threat of the clinch. The last one that I want to look at with you guys is sometimes when you guys are here, we can start to go for the arm drag or for a good 2-on-1. And what ends up happening when we start to dominate in that fashion and start to, threaten his back to be exposed a lot of times to defend that threat, he voluntarily posts that leg. So as I'm here, he posts that leg, right? Because now he kind of blocks me. So he blocks the threat to the back, but it inadvertently leaves the leg. Okay? So now we have the two options depending on how he posted. I can go to that leg hug position and the shin on shin. And we go to the situation. Or if he posted more out, right? I can either go to the hook lift position on the two legs to the one. Or same thing if you posted more out. Yes, exactly. Maybe I can even work sliding myself straight underneath, right? So I hope that concept of forcing a post or winning a dominant step ahead from the upper body shows that you guys can get this position off of those reactions. Okay, next we're gonna work these entries from when I'm on my back, but this time when my opponent's on both knees, right? So just like how when my opponent was standing above me, how sometimes it's gonna force my back to the ground, the seated entries aren't gonna be there. Same thing from when he's on the knee. Sometimes, he's gonna force my back on the ground, seated entries aren't gonna be there. We're gonna have to change to a couple other options. So the first option we can look at, a little bit more rotate this way, perfect, is the Z-guard option, okay? And being honest, you can do this one from the half butterfly position, and I used to do this one a lot with the half butterfly. But nowadays, right, when I specifically want to go towards the X-guard position, I prefer more this Z-guard style entry, just because I feel like this frame can take a little bit more weight and can also be used to kind of push the guy out of balance before I go underneath. So we'll take a look at that now. So when I'm here in this situation, I have all my frames set up. I'm on my side. I have the one leg trapped in the half with this leg, grapevine the leg, and my knee and my elbow are more or less connected over here, so I have a good frame system, and I'm blocking this hand. I'm going to look now to start to pivot myself underneath, so my goal is going to be to work the opportunity to get this hand under. So my hand's going to start to go underneath, and I don't need to get that deep at first, okay? A lot of times I just reach my wrist at first. And now from here, I'm going to start to pivot myself up onto the shoulder and drive my knee into the guy. So what I just did was I brought my shoulder and my ear towards his knee. This is a lot easier than bringing his leg to me. If I bring myself to the leg, sometimes that's going to be a lot easier. And Kevin feels he's kind of out of balance over here. So a lot of times he's going to react back into me. And whether he reacts or not and how he reacts is what we're going to look to see. But the mechanics more or less stay the same. So the mechanics are going to be, I'm going to use this hand to push him this way to take the weight out of this leg. And I'm going to pivot my hips underneath him, scooping my hips underneath him to face the complete opposite direction. Right now my hips are facing this way. When we end, they're going to be facing the other way. And then my knee is going to open, and this hook is going to push his arm and his body towards that way. So as I scoop back under, you guys can see I'm completely underneath him for the position. If I need to adjust a little more, I can just hip escape and bring myself to this X-guard position. Sometimes my foot ends on the outside. I definitely have to worry about foot locks whenever I do this entry. I prefer usually to bring my foot back tucked underneath so I don't have to worry about those foot locks. Even on the initial entry, before I put him out of balance, sometimes I have to worry about foot locks too. So that's just something to just keep in your guys' mind. But either way, we're going to get it underneath right to this position, okay? So we can look again. A little bit above an angle, yeah. So we'll just throw in a couple other variations when we go into the position. So I kind of scoop myself underneath, right? And sometimes when I'm here, as I drive into him, I pivot up onto my shoulder over here. And as I drive into him, you know, sometimes he doesn't exactly like push back into me with a lot of momentum. And if he doesn't do that, you know, we can work to go to his heel or connect my hands, whichever one you feel. And I'm going to have to scoop my hips underneath him. Your knees okay? Sorry, Kevin. And my knee is going against his hip. And then I can start to scoop myself, kick him away, hide my foot, and get right back to that position. So if he doesn't push back into you, that's one good option. And then the last option that we can look at too is, again, the same entry, every concept stays the same over here. I come underneath, I work to push and pivot. Once I get towards this situation over here, sometimes my partner, you know, he's going to be trying to grab my head, something like this. And then we have to remember that concept of like, if my arm extends, his arm extends, right? So as he's grabbing my head, I push his head. Okay? And that's going to take the arm off. I can pummel my feet back into the inside if that's where I'm more comfortable. And we can work from the position, okay? So I'll do the entry one last time. Maybe we'll try a different angle just so we can see on this side. Come over here, please. Okay, one more. This way. Perfect. And we get the position. Okay, next we're gonna work one more position where I'm on my back and we're gonna transition, all right? And, you know, we looked at kind of the Z-guard or the knee shield half guard entry. Let's look at one deep half guard, or rather two deep half guard entries that we can use too, okay? So my back's on the ground, and I already arrived in the deep half guard. So when I'm here in the deep half guard, I'm keeping myself disciplined. My hip's underneath his hip. I'm not like hanging out over here. My hip's underneath his hip. I have the control of the one leg. I have to control the other leg. My elbow's tucked, okay? And now from the situation, I'm going to look now to change to the X guard or the one leg X guard. So the first one we're going to look to use is to go to the X guard. So what I like to do is I like to try to see which hook I can get in first, okay? So I always try to get one hook inside first, okay? And most of the time, in my experience, the back hook comes in first. If you have a little bit of trouble getting that back hook in, keep a drape. You can hip escape further underneath him, put the hook inside, and then re-scoop your hip. Okay, so that's a nice, simple way where you can insert that hook. And then now from here, what I'm going to look to do is start to elevate Kevin's leg. Notice that I keep the knee control, okay, when I do this. I don't want to just elevate. He's going to just kick backs about. Yeah, I'm going to be in trouble. So I have this way blocking the path there with the hook. This hand blocking the knee, the path back. And now when I start to lift over here, I'm going to lift and insert that other hook, okay? So that other hook is that first hook of the X guard that we're looking for. Okay, the one hook that's behind his knee and the knee's pointed in the front. Now we need to get the next hook, okay? So sometimes if you have the flexibility, you can just put it right there. If you don't have the flexibility, it's okay. I'm going to do it with the hook inside for today, just because I have flexibility. Next, I have the X guard set up. The only problem is the knee that I'm not used to is on the mat. All right, so what I'm gonna look to do is take the weight out of the side. So the way I do that is my both hands come to his ribs, okay? I'm gonna push his ribs this way and extend my hooks. And I get him to go straight to that X guard position so he can posture up. Yeah, and we're gonna end, you can see my hooks are already orientated properly in the X guard that we've been working, okay? Let's do that one more time, Kevin. Just do the other angle on that side. So we'll work a back angle so maybe you guys can see more of my footwork. Okay. So we're here in that deep half. My back hook comes in. I keep it draped. Do you guys see that? If there wasn't enough space, hip escape, get on your side, put your hook in, and then re-square your hip so you can lift straight up. Now I can lift straight up. I change the hook. Okay, I have that first hook in. Ideally, I can lift and put the other hook in too. I stretch and push 2 arms against his ribs and stretch my hooks at the same time. And almost kind of like sit up a little bit. And we into that X guard position. Okay. One other one that I like from the deep half is if you don't feel that comfortable going to the X guard, you can go to the one leg X guard. So can I have the deep half on this side? Same position, just on this side. So this knee on the ground, please. Beautiful. So when we're here, sometimes, you know, that back hook is a little bit hard to get. So we can try to put the front hook inside instead. And when we get the front hook inside, I'm going to look to lift straight up. Okay, once I lift straight up, my hand that's underneath his leg over here is going to pivot and go to his chest. And look, now we're right back in that hook lift position. So I can go right back to the one leg X guard. Or I could have lifted and got to this position over here. So one more time. So here in this situation, I control the deep half guard. This time I got the front hook inside, so I'm going to choose to go to the one leg X guard. I'm going to start to lift over here and bring my hand in front. I need to bring this hand in front so it doesn't close the distance, chest on top of me. Okay? And I use this control. I have the hook and the control of the leg, so it's blocking both directions, right? It's that concept again. And now I pivot myself towards the leg that I want, and I can even start to control the knee line, go underneath, and we end right there.